Це 4-й випуск 8-го сезону Галасу. Під час війни чітко починаєш розуміти, хто твої друзі, хто твої вороги, а також чого варта справжня підтримка. Тому цього разу ми будемо розмовляти саме про це, про друзів та підтримку. Про підтримку від простих людей та музикантів, які роблять все, що в їхніх силах, для того, щоб не лишати нас сам на сам з ворогом. Ми дякуємо Світлані Сабвейсан за ідею цього епізоду та контакти гостей. Багато чого буде вперше. Ви вперше почуєте нас англійською. Ви вперше почуєте гостей з міста Вільнюс. Це наш випуск з литовськими музикантами та організаторами Дейніусом та Камілом. So Дейніус and Каміл, hi, we are very happy to have you. It's our first, let's say, international podcast in English, so we are happy that you're here.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Thanks for inviting.
Yeah, cool. Thanks that you agreed to have this conversation with us. So we wanted to start on this note that on Saturday, as you probably know, there was this Eurovision content, and Ukraine won. And obviously, I think no one in this podcast actually listen to the music, that kind of music that is present at that contest. But we want to ask you, what's your, let's say, relationship, or what do you know about this music scene in Ukraine? As long as you are a part of like this / black metal band, what do you know about Ukrainian bands and Ukrainian music scene?
Well, first of all, congratulations on winning Eurovision. I think this means probably a tremendous support from all over Europe to your country. I mean, when the final votes were announced, my back was, like chilling.
Yeah.
Like, wow, this is really happening. Like we were living with this sensation that how to help Ukraine for more than 2 months right now. And I think this is a, really great victory. Maybe a symbolical victory. Maybe it's not, like you are in the middle of war out here, but I think it's really, really good thing. And congratulations on that.
Thanks.
Yeah, and apart from that, essentially here, so I would say our relationship with at least the Ukrainian music scene is in relation to various actually bands here. So to mention a few, so I know, for example, Druk, one of at least my personal favorite band, I would say essentially here. How's that band called also?
Nocturnal Morto, maybe.
Yeah, Nocturnal Morto.
I think they're from Kharkiv.
Yeah, both from Kharkiv. That's where I'm from, my native city. Yeah.
Also,
and 1914, there is another booming band. They will play in Lithuania in a couple of months, hopefully.
Yeah. There is also this band, new
White Ward.
Yeah, White Ward.
White Ward.
Quite nice also.
Yeah. Then we have a friend from who lives in Kiev, or used to live in Kiev, from band Halas S08e.
Yeah.
They were supposed to be visiting Lithuania in one of our events, I think 2 years ago, but then the pandemic started and nothing happened.
Yeah, he went now to the front line. As far as we know here, we were quite in contact with him quite a lot, because I mean, not only because of, let's say, festivals, gigs here, but we did, for example, we are, let's say, kind of like acquaintances here. We were actually in Kiev now. What year was that?
2019.
Yeah, 2019. Got a very nice tour from Halas S08e around Kiev here, and partially Chernobyl here. So yeah. Hopefully the guys are gonna be strong and survive the front line here, because we are on the front line as far as I know somewhere.
Taken from your response, basically, our friend Svetlana told us about you and about your organization or booking called Nekrokatarsis, right? And you're like making shows in Vilnius, in Lithuania, and you supported Ukraine on your previous events, and I saw the posts on your Facebook, and that you made like free entrance with Ukrainian passport, etc. And
That's right.
yeah. So can you tell a little bit more about it? And actually, well, first of all, why? Because it's not that obvious for every person in the West, in the Western countries, that Ukraine needs support. Was it obvious for you, like from the beginning of this full-scale war? And what was your thoughts, and why you decided to help us by that actions?
Well, we started planning this event, I think, in December or January. It was originally intended to be like a anniversary gig for one of the bands that played. It's Luctus. They had a 20-year anniversary this year. And actually, we were planning to announce the event. I think it was supposed to be like 1st of March or something like that. And then obviously, 5 days before that, the war happened. And like we were first stunned, like what is going on? We were just, shocked, like everyone else probably. So, we were in sort of shaky mindset. So are we going to cancel this? Is it like even morally true to have a metal gig in times of war and suffering? So what are we going to do? But essentially, we had some talks with the bands and other people involved in the organization. And like the only option that we have, but I mean, the only option that was in our minds, like to dedicate this whole thing to Ukraine, because everyone in every band is like very supportive of Ukraine. Like, well, the bands couldn't do anything else. Like, do you want to do this for a charity gig to Ukraine? And everyone said yes without having second thoughts.
I mean, it was one of the most meaningful ways to do the gig essentially here. So yeah.
And of course, that meant for the bands like sharing their fees. So every band played for free. We got some discounts from the club. We got some discounts from the rental company. The sound engineers, the light engineers worked for free. So all in all, and like the audience itself, they really liked this idea that you can go to the gig and still support Ukraine. So, it's like, well, killing two birds with one stone. You get to see the gig and you support Ukraine. So it's like, might be like a perfect combination for some people. And the whole support that we got from the local audience, it was, well, tremendous. We got probably more than 500 people coming in. So all in all, we raised 4,500 euros. Which
that's really huge. And I wanted to obviously to thank you, because every action taken by local people in their countries, it's really, and I'm saying it deeply honestly, it's really I mean, we appreciate it. It's you can't even describe in words how well, at least how I feel when I see this support from music scene, from journalists, and from just local regular guys. And that's, we really want to thank you. So thank you guys for that.
Well, it's the least that we can do. I mean, if we could do more, we would definitely do it. But at least we can do that. Like as promoters, as musicians, at least we can do that.
Yeah, and as for like cancel or not cancel the show, that's actually the discussion that's happening right now in Ukrainian society. Like we're trying to define like what's normal and what you can do, what you shouldn't do. So obviously we don't have any shows, like almost no shows, but some of the cities which are like liberated or which are more safe now than previously, they are starting to open up, and we're trying to decide for ourselves like what is okay to do during the war. But That's I don't think that it's a question like for other countries like you did. I think it's important for the issue to be seen, and it's not even about the money. It's very important just to show like what's happening, not to like close your eyes on such things, because I think it can have pretty like devastating consequences for everybody, and of course we appreciate it very much. So it's not like a question, it's more my rambling about this this
Yeah.
situation. So I think you made the right call to not to cancel the show, and
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And
Yeah. But you have to understand that were sort of distracted. Well, we didn't know what's right and what's wrong, and we it's the first time like that this whole region is in such a situation. Well, of course there was like annexation of Crimea and things like that, but now it's a full-scale war.
yeah,
Like
it was a
nobody's
different
hiding.
level. Yes.
Yeah, it's on a completely different level, and you still need to find your own balance. Like, where do you belong in this whole ecosystem of and where do you fit in? So it took some time to understand what's right and what's wrong. But I appreciate your words very much. They definitely mean a lot, and I hope that the money that we have raised will help to save a couple of lives.
It will definitely help. And before we continue with the music side, I just wanted to ask you: do you feel some kind of fear, or I mean, are you afraid of the potential war can come to your land? Because as we know, Russia may not stop, or we don't know what will happen, but the history teaches us that it can happen. So, what's the thoughts like in Vilnius, in Lithuania in general?
Well,
or at least your friends.
Yeah. Maybe to me personally, maybe the fear is not the right word. It's sort of rational worrying. So because fears implies something irrational, right? So I try to stay rational, and obviously that can happen. I mean, I have a couple of acquaintances in military, and like they were preparing for like a full-scale war with Ukraine since Crimea happened, and that's their dogma, let's say.
I think maybe it's more of a thing that the first 2 weeks, let's say, were those weeks when no one was able to like even think rationally, and everyone was worried and like didn't even know what to feel. Like, should I do something? Should I like, I don't know, pack up my stuff, leave my country, buy a gun? People were everyone starting going to like shooting ranges, because before all of this stuff, I'm regularly walking to a shooting range. So when you go to a shooting range right now in Vilnius, essentially here, there's quite often situations where they're almost out of stock of ammunition, essentially here, or the shooting range essentially is just full of people here. But I mean, yeah, people like, I don't know, drinking every day almost as if it's the end of the world or something, you know. But I mean, right now, as Дейніус mentioned, essentially here, this has moved more to, let's say, rational worrying, essentially here. Everyone understands what the situation is and what could happen here, what are the risks, maybe what we don't know here. But I mean, everyone now is trying to do something so that the situation is not becoming even worse here. So, you know, someone's sending money, essentially, someone's helping refugees, essentially here. Some people are going and actually from Lithuania and carrying supplies to Ukraine, essentially here. There are even some people who are joining that like foreign legion, essentially here in Ukraine here. So I mean, everyone's trying to help out as much as possible. And I mean, you know, everyone I think understands, but even with the current side of events, essentially here, NATO or not NATO here, we all have to now be, let's say, united essentially here as much as possible here.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Also, I wanted to ask, it's kind of maybe controversial question, but we're not like a political military podcast, but did your perspective change with like how the war is going? Because like short like introduction, everyone was like for I think 10 years was afraid that something like that can happen, and made a lot of successions to Russia because they were like seen like this gods of war that nothing can stop. And here actually it's like we see that it's not what's happening at the moment. Like so does this, if you're following the news about war in our country, does this change your perception on like what can happen and what can be done to Russia's military?
Absolutely. I mean, I guess all of us were kind of fooled by Russian propaganda that it's some kind of an invincible army, that it could take, Kiev in 3 days or whatnot. They actively pushed this message, and I believe even foreign intelligence officials believed that.
Yes.
So
definitely.
The propaganda was very efficient. But what's funny that the heads of the state, of the Russian state, have started to believe their own propaganda too. So
yeah.
well, then we see what's happening, that they're getting beaten, they're retreating from some places, they don't make progress in Donbass, and well, first of all, of course, it buys time to gather more supplies towards the Eastern Front, towards the south. The military equipment is flowing from probably all the Western countries. I think even Israel is sending something, even though they try to stay neutral.
Yes.
So, what can I say? Well, if you start to believe your own propaganda and don't think reasonably, well, I think Russians, well, they're gonna probably fail there, but so the perception has definitely changed. But I still want to look at this reasonably and rationally. So they might be crazy from time to time. So they want to stay unpredictable, and what knows what the Russian government can do in the future.
Yeah, I would say the same thing essentially here, but trying to stay at least rational here, I would maybe just say but you always need to be, well, even if someone is failing at such a level here, I would say there should be always be like a bit of caution essentially here.
Prepared.
To not overestimate the enemy essentially here, even though it is becoming like almost a circus.
Yeah.
Well, it's not a circus, but definitely not what the propaganda was saying.
What they planned, yeah. That's true. Well, since as Taras mentioned, we consider ourselves as a music podcast. I want to go a little bit back to Nekrokatarsis, and I saw your description of your organization in the Facebook, and you mentioned that you want to change the situation with heavy dark music in Lithuania, and my question is, did you change it? Have you reached your goal, and why? What was the situation before you started this thing, and how is it now?
Well, we have started this organization, I think, in 2012, so almost 10 years ago. And during that time, essentially, we had no gigs with black metal, dedicated to black metal, to death metal. Like we didn't get too many artists touring through our country. There was no local promoter that focus on some idea, like we want to do this black or death metal or something like that. So the gig wise, the scene was pretty dead at that point. We had some bands definitely, but
more of the trendy stuff, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. So we have started doing this festival Armageddon Descends. The first edition was in 2013, and we did 6 of them, and 7th was once canceled because of COVID. That was painful.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think we have managed to grow some audience, to get some ears on this kind of music by presenting foreign artists that would essentially probably never go there. They would get unnoticed by the local crowd. And because we have always strived on quality, like we don't want to bring an artist that does a bad live gig. We cherry pick the lineups, and we really strive for quality. And I think we have managed to grow at least some of the audience that really is able to appreciate this kind of music. And then it's kind of a feedback loop. So you're getting audience, then you start to get some more bands, then the audience supports the bands, then the bands get more confident or play better, record better music. So it's like a flourishing of a community. We want to nurture the community. And talking about if we reached our goal, well, we haven't measured that. We don't have sort of a key performance indicator or like we did like 10% better than last year, so how are we going to improve this? It's not really measurable, but I think overall our organization made an impact, and it was definitely felt, for example, during the gig that was dedicated for Ukraine, this Luktus anniversary show, because we were able to translate the message really efficiently. We have enough local following, so everyone was able to pick up that, these guys are doing this gig, these guys are reliable, they usually do good gigs, so I will go there. This was, I guess, part of the success of the event.
I mean, generally speaking, the last editions, probably last maybe 2, but maybe even 4, as one of the success things, I think that the festival got known essentially to a lot of foreign people essentially here, not only like neighboring countries essentially here, although we do get a lot of visitors from Belarus, Estonia, for example, but also we started to get a lot of visitors from like Scandinavian countries, Germany, for example, and
Great Britain,
UK, and so on here. So it's kind of started to become even an international festival here. It's quite a shame that COVID struck essentially, and we weren't able to do the 7th edition essentially here, because I mean, I think we were going into a peak stage essentially.
Yeah, I understand what you're talking about. We have this very huge metal festival in Kharkiv called New Circle, with a lot of bands, international bands, and and the 2020 edition was meant to be great, but it never happened, and it didn't happen in 2021, and right now obviously it won't happen. So that's COVID was painful for all, I think, people involved in music, but we haven't had a chance to change that. But what can you say about the speaking of the local scene, about do you have like a lot of people who are listening to the heavy music, to the death black metal stuff, because for example in Ukraine it can be different. You can have a gigs when I don't know, like 50 people will come, or like even less. From like other gig can be more successful, but it's very tricky thing. What can you say about Vilnius and Lithuania?
I think there is a it's difficult to maybe compare the scene to other countries because, first of all, our country is quite small essentially here. So the other thing being that a lot of people still during like after the 2008 crisis and so on here, a lot of people also migrated from Lithuania here. But I mean, the scene is here. I think what is here in our whole scene is at least a very loyal following, I would say here. If you do a decent gig, even if it's like a smaller gig essentially with 2-3 bands here, yeah, you could get like 100 people, 150 people essentially here, maybe 200 here. So the scene at least is loyal here, so it's quite okay here. Also, I think our scene is also, interesting that although we have dedication to certain music styles here, but people have a good taste in music essentially here. So someone who comes to our festival will also maybe be listening, to stuff like industrial music, for example, here, more interesting ambient music, maybe some kind of like dark folk, maybe psychedelic rock here. So people here are like how do you say it, like
have versatile taste.
Yeah, but melomaniacs. Or how do you say it?
Yeah, we understand.
But talking about the size of the scene, well, I would say that there is not more than 1,000 people who listens to such kind of music.
If you don't count the taxi drivers.
Yeah, so countrywide, there might be more, I don't know, but looking at the numbers, how many people come to the events, I would say that there's 1,000 probably extreme metal fans, maybe slightly more.
Yeah, so I was looking through the posters of your festivals, and I saw that at least a third of all the bands are local bands there. So I think it's cool, and that you're mixing like black metal and death metal with power electronics stuff.
Oh yeah,
I think this is how it like should work in some kind of like American or UK scenes, and I saw a lot of bands that I like that Congregation and Mgla. I saw Mgla in Kiev, and that's like this looks like the festivals that I would attend.
That's probably one of the funny things actually here in regards to that mix of having instrumental stage and like electronic stage here, because for example here in Lithuania a lot of the local artists essentially who play like dark ambient industrial music and so on here, not all of them of course, but a lot of them are like previous metalheads essentially here, which played in
some pagan metal bands, and then they turned from metal towards industrial experimental music.
Yeah, but for example, we had various, like industrial artists, let's say from, I think let's say this guy was from Human Larvae, like a German artist essentially here. So I think it was him who told us that if someone would do this kind of lineup or like similar one here in Germany, no one probably would go to the festival itself, just because no one would understand the concept of having two stages, like one instrumental one and the other being like industrial and stuff, power electronics. But yeah, I mean, these two types, let's say, of music essentially although it's a different way of expression essentially here. But I think that the messages, concepts which are conveyed are well, quite similar essentially here, and I don't see a reason why there couldn't be a event essentially with two stages like this. Good example is a festival like Roadburn essentially here, where we have very flexible and interesting lineups. It's a shame when Roadburn happens, I can never go there because of some kind of reason essentially here, but want to finally actually visit that festival.
Yeah, that's also my personal dream. I always wanted to, but it's very hard to, for me it was always hard to, first of all, find some like a living space near the festival, because always it's booked like a year before, you know, and some other distractions. So what I wanted to ask, speaking of like in the last years, even for me, I'm not that, you know, very into death or black metal, but I like kind of like some bands, and even I recognized this new wave of kind of popularity of death metal with bands like Blood Incantation or stuff like that. And so, and we even in Ukraine we had this the impact of this new wave by like new bands started to be created in Ukraine. Do you see this in your country, like young bands, maybe young guys who played death metal, who started to play death metal, or I don't know, maybe guys who switched from other genres? For example, in Ukraine, a lot of guys from hardcore started to play in like old school death metal or stuff like that. Do you see that tension, or like?
Probably not. I don't know.
I mean, there are actually here, so Могила, Anapilin.
But they don't play death metal.
I mean, no, but they play like black metal, but that kind of style which no one would actually play in a different situation. So there are kind of some bands like that essentially here. Still Crypts of Despair, but we started a bit earlier. But I mean,
12 years ago.
Yeah, but I mean, there are some bands essentially here. Maybe there's another problem I would say here. In Lithuania, there's like either you have very good bands which are like dedicated to what we are doing essentially here, or you have a lot of bands which, like, you know, play for a few years, maybe release something, and then just you know, they disappear, and then maybe even the same people start a new band, and then a new band, and a new band.
Yeah, it's the same story.
That's
One year they play
style.
like I mean, like 1 year they play like almost, you know, stoner because it's popular everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, then they play hardcore, then death metal, then maybe post-punk. I don't know.
Okay.
But apart from that, there are serious bands actually here.
Okay, I got it. And one more question about the local scene from my side. What we observe in Ukraine, that a lot of bands switched from English or from Russian, who sing Russian, to Ukrainian language in the lyrics. What is like prevalent in Lithuania? Like most bands are singing in English, or you trying to use your own language? I mean, native language.
It's probably 50-50. We definitely have bands that use Lithuanian lyrics and poetry, but well, I would say that 50% is using English lyrics. As for us personally, we are in this band called Sisyphean. We use English language because, well, for me personally, it's so much easier to express myself in English. Like, I wouldn't be able to craft a good poem in Lithuanian, but of course there are some people who do that brilliantly.
Yes, some bands actually create such great lyrics in Lithuanian that when you like listen to everything, it does sound like something which very fits the music essentially here. And but when you read like the words, you're even like, whoa, some of these words I like know them, but I never like use them in my like daily, you know, conversations essentially here. So I think, yeah, it does require a certain level poetism a bit higher level, essentially, than what comes to our mind, maybe usually, essentially, here. I don't know. Personally, for me, yeah, at least writing lyrics in English is probably easier.
Yeah,
Okay.
you mentioned Drudh in the beginning, so
Yeah.
it's a shame that you probably cannot appreciate because it's in Ukrainian, but they have the most incredible lyrics of like
Yes.
all of the
Like-
I'll
bands.
correct you. I can actually appreciate their lyrics. I don't like speak Ukrainian, let's say, directly, but I'm Polish essentially here. And I
Oh, okay.
understand Polish and Russian, so when I read Ukrainian, I can kind of mostly understand the point.
Mhm.
Yeah, but
Yeah, and
I can recommend it to everyone because it's based on Ukrainian poetry, and I was actually talking to a lot of like Ukrainian poetry experts, like people who studied for a living or studied in the universities, and they're saying that it's actually great taste, that they are like they know a lot of poets that are not that common. So the person who was choosing the like lyrics to base songs on, he has to have great taste, because it's not like Taras Shevchenko, Ivan Franko, Lesa Ukrainka, and
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
And person really knows his stuff. And for me, it's always at this point. I actually we had a like long story with Kirilo on this question, but on this topic, like should the lyrics be in English, or should they be in Ukrainian, or should they be in Russian? And at this point, I think he's won, and now I think that usually, like, for whole my life, I played in bands that were singing in English, and now I think that it's like for Ukraine, specifically for Ukraine, it's like an easy way out, probably, and it's like conformism, probably, for us, not for you. Just I'm talking about us, and that we should explore like our language more, because it really suits, especially like black metal stuff and death metal stuff.
Yeah,
it's
definitely.
incredibly
Yeah.
poetic, but it's probably harder because you cannot gather influences from the bands that you like, because when you listen, you get used to certain like melodic, to certain words and that kind of stuff. So you should like break yourself and make an effort to make it work. But when it works incredible. I think that's what you were saying about bands that sing in Lithuanian.
But then there's this point as well. You mentioned that we cannot appreciate lyrics of early
Yeah,
truth.
yeah.
So it's unfair.
Yeah, it's I think like a lot of bands started writing lyrics in English because they thought that, okay, someone in the West will listen to our music and they will try to understand our lyrics, and they won't be able to do it if we will sing in Ukrainian or Russian. And actually that's a tricky part, because for example, we had an album with my band earlier this year, and the album is like in Ukrainian, and with the full-scale war, some people from the West asked me about like the theme of the album, and it was hard. Basically, I translated lyrics and I sent them the lyrics because Google Translate is not that fine. So yeah, English is kind of international, and in some parts, there are some very like
Specific
strong
language
cons.
nuances,
Yeah, but I agree with Taras that like it always amazes me how Ukrainian fits specifically into black metal. I don't know why, but in the black metal it works like
Definitely. It's a very harsh language. You have strong pronunciation, strong vowels, and things like that. But I also think that this depends on the genre that you're playing. For example, Ukrainian band like Stone Jesus.
Yeah.
Like, well, I guess they are, well, not doomed to sing in English, but they just make more sense with English language.
I agree with you, definitely. Yes, it depends on every specific case, basically. So we cannot just say everyone should sing in Ukrainian or Lithuanian or English.
Then there is also 1914, this band. So they also have this really strong concept about First World War, and also I think that this transmits the message way more efficiently. But of course, my main point is that music goes first. Without good music, the lyrics don't matter, probably. And as long as the music is great, then that's the most important thing. And poetry, anything can go. If you are really interested in some kind of poetry, you can translate it, find the translation.
Yeah.
Something like that.
So, since we already touched this stuff, your band Sisyphean will have an album in a week, right, or something like that. Next week.
Next week,
yeah.
11 days.
Yeah. So can you? I listened to the single, to the first or second single. To be honest, I don't remember, but I really liked that like black and stuff. And I read about the concept. I think you mentioned, Дейніус, that it was based on like some Buddhism and some.
That was. Buddhism was more about one of the songs, so Hearts of Mercury here. But I mean, every song has its own, let's say, message maybe behind it essentially here. But generally speaking, the album itself, it covers, let's say, maybe moments of, well, people's faith, let's say here. But when I'm speaking about faith, I mean like not
religious, but
not religious faith. I mean, it could be, but not only essentially here. So
like spiritually, right? Like
spiritual faith essentially here.
Authority.
Situations where you're hopeless essentially here. You think that it's the end essentially, and you try to find some kind of faith in something that you will survive the day, let's say here. So when we write the lyrics, let's say here, we put, let's say, some kind of idea behind the song here, but we don't want to tell you that, this is a very specific song about a very specific thing. We provide a concept essentially here, and we want the listener to, let's say, have his own options how to put some kind of, let's say, maybe experiences of his own, let's say, in those lyrics here. So as an example, let's say the album itself, generally speaking, is about those moments of hopelessness essentially here, when you try to find some kind of faith in something, and either you find that enlightenment, let's say, or just everything goes to shit, roughly speaking here. When you think about it, so, it could be something from a religious man essentially here losing his faith because the world, let's say, it's not as well it should be essentially here. Up to, it could be a guy on the front lines right now here who lost his arm right now here, lost his leg here. He's going to be returning back to his family essentially here, and, well, he has to live his life somehow further, somehow find some kind of faith in wanting to continue his life essentially here. So, you could put various situations what this could be essentially here, but the concept is something like this here.
Also, I was like delighted when I saw that your album will have like 5 different vinyl releases, different vinyl colors, as I'm vinyl collector myself. So what's the situation with the labels? This label is not from Lithuania, right?
No, it's from India, but it has the departments in USA and Poland.
So what's it's always interested me, like what's the help from the label actually to the band on this level of underground music. So is it only like helping you with the physical release of your album, or it's touring and booking and stuff like that?
Well, ideally, the band like Sisyphean would focus on, like writing music, creating artworks, some concepts, poetry, maybe shooting a video, playing gigs, recording music, and to invest our own time towards doing a release, promoting it, finding some partners that would distribute it, that would write a review or do an interview. It would be just exhausting.
Yeah,
so
I totally understand.
It's very useful to have a fully dedicated label, which is transcending obscurity. It's a full-time job for the owner, and he has some more personnel who assist him. So it's very good to have such a dedicated and professional label personnel who can assist in production of the releases. They do promotion as well. They do have some contacts in music festivals, but are not directly booking the festivals themselves. But it's like getting some more hands in the band, so who does some job where we don't have particular competences. And about a month ago, we have received those vinyl records from the label, and when we have saw them, actually how they turned out, like with all those splatter prints and like we were stunned, like our jaws dropped. And I thought to myself, well, we could have never done this if we would have gone the self-release way. So even though obviously the importance of labels is diminishing because everything is getting more globalized, and there is more and more autonomy for the bands possible. There is social media, digital streaming. So for some bands, the label can be a burden, or they can limit the progress of the band. But in our case, it just boosted the band, boosted their own confidence, and it really elevated the band to a different level. Like we have never imagined that we could achieve this, like.
Yeah.
But I don't know, what is your experience with labels?
To be honest, I don't have any. So we were part only of like very, very small local labels which helped us with cassette releases, and I never had anything of music which I played released on vinyl. So it's kind of my long-term dream, which I'm trying to achieve. So I'm really happy that you have this opportunity, and it really looks, even though I didn't see a vinyl like in my hands, but those,
we'll send you one.
Thank you. Those photos looks really beautiful, and it's always delights me when I can see and the artwork, when I can look at it in the vinyl format. It's very cool. So I understand your emotions when you describing that your jaws were dropped when you see it. It's really cool.
It's interesting thing about labels is that I greatly appreciate the labels that are like genre specific and that have their own like dedicated like sound. I think not like, I don't know, Napalm Records, which just sign a lot of bands and they don't really care about them and they don't share like some specific sound. But speaking about some I don't know, some death metal bands or some black metal bands. I was lucky to get signed to one of American like niche death metal bands called death metal labels called Rotted Life, and it did not like give a lot of opportunities. Yeah, but there are a lot of people that just monitor things that are happening in these labels. People that dig the stuff that's are searching for, like, they are fans of death metal and they search for death metal throughout the world, and it's cool to be signed to such a label. It will not give you like money for, I don't know, some video or make you 700 vinyl in all colors, but some people will notice, and for me it's great to be a part of some small community. It's better to be a part of some small community that you feel, that you appreciate, where people find you, than to just rush to some big label just to make a repost. And I don't know. You understand what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
It's great to be. It's great to understand that people signed you for some reason, that they like your sound or they like your aesthetic, not just that they saw that you tour a lot and sell a lot of merch and
Probably, another thing which maybe bands, not all of the bands understand essentially here, and I mean, we were there also at some point here. Previously, when we released our first album, Illusions of Eternity, so we released it through French label Drakkar Productions. So that, for example, label is maybe, let's say, more of a old school type of label in regards to how they deal with a lot of the stuff essentially here. They don't do any kind of splatter vinyls, first of all. They release, maybe essentially just, release the vinyl itself, let's say in this case here, also digipacks in our case, and cassettes. They do promotion maybe more old school way here, so maybe paper zines, stuff like that here. Flyers here, and they're an old label like from the 90s essentially here. They released one of those first French black metal bands here. So once again, they're one of those labels which people just know, and they don't even have to do a lot of promotion essentially. What we did right now here with Transcending Obscurity here, so I think we learned, let's say, what label can do in general and what they expect from us. And now Transcending Obscurity, it's more like they're more of a modern label, let's say, here, with modern way on how operations are done here. So once again, we're learning new stuff, let's say, and what can we expect from a label in general here, and what should we provide them essentially here, and what kind of things can we use to benefit each other essentially here. So I think, going further, when you grow as a band here, I mean, even the same Druk, which we talked about here, I think they're now signed to like Season of Mist here. So so it's one of those like step by steps here. You learn some things with some people, you go to the next level, you learn more stuff and use more of the stuff, and exploit it. Exploit maybe is not the right word. Utilize it essentially. So yeah, I mean, a label can be, I think, useful in many ways, even these days. Essentially here, you have to just learn how to use the label, and also be useful to the label here, not just I came here, brought my record, now you do all of the work.
Yeah. Just bring me all the stuff and and give it to me. Yeah.
Money, bitches, fame.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so-
understand what you're saying.
Yeah, that's like
Okay.
a 70s approach to record label.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah,
get signed
yes.
to a label. Where's my Ferrari? So it's-
I'm a rock star.
yeah, so that's like a tool that you should know how to use. You should know what you want, like how the label can help you, because otherwise you just have another reason to post something on your social media.
So yeah, it's not the 70s or 80s here. Right now, a band is not only, well, it is mainly a musical thing where you record music, you play it live here. But nowadays, a music band is almost like a cultural, let's say, entity, which does, well, at least it's good. It's a good band if it does more than just music here. And yeah, so labels probably have to work with labels on them on that kind of level, I would say.
Like it's stupid
Um,
right now to get signed to label just to get signed to a label, because you can
Yeah.
distribute your stuff to the streaming services and to Bandcamp, and you don't need like anyone to do that. But
Yeah.
it's a great reason to sign to a label, to be a part of some community. I think if you really like the label, if you like the bands, maybe some people that didn't know you, they will see you. But that's
In
actually
that sense, we're in a bit of a strange place, maybe, because Transcending Obscurity, our label, is mostly releasing death metal.
hmm
They have a bunch of black metal bands, and there's a sort of more of this
Doom bands.
dissonant, experimental,
Mhm.
post metal bands. But
Most of the bands are like brutal, slamming death metal, grindcore, stuff like that, you know.
so it's not that we can relate to those bands on the musical level. I mean, I'm fan of many of them. I really like this brutal death metal, slamming death metal. Grindcore is one of my favorites too. So from the outside perspective, I'm not sure how do we fit in to this roster of bands, but yeah, it's a part of the community, as you said, and it depends how you're admitted into this thing, into this community, and we felt really welcome. That's a nice cat that you have there.
Yeah, I have 2 cats, by the way.
me too.
Yeah, listeners won't see it, but currently the cat is showing at Terrace's camera right now. So, and guys, what are your plans after the release of the album? So, are you planning some touring? Are you planning like with visiting new countries where you didn't play before, or what do you think?
Well, we're first of all gonna be. We recently had like a album presentation, let's say, gig here, but yeah, we're playing now into one of the most, let's say, highlight metal festivals in Lithuania here, Kilkimžaibo and Devilstone. After which, well, there are some plans, let's say, ideas in the work in regards to a tour, but it's not an easy thing to do, especially when you don't have a booking agency, at least for the moment. But yeah, it's in the works, let's say here. But we will be, interested to, of course, work not only on live stuff essentially here, but more things to support the album itself essentially here. So stuff like more music videos, let's say, for the songs itself here. And although we released let's say visualizers and maybe live and studio videos here and live videos here, but we're also working on more like conceptual videos, let's say, here for some of the songs here. I mean, and also in the meanwhile, I mean, this whole COVID thing and everything here, let's say, delayed maybe how long did it take to not only record the album but also to release it here. So there is some back music, let's say, cooking here, which we also plan to maybe release maybe as a single or EP or something like that. So also stuff like that here. So I mean, we're never sitting and, you know, just smoking, so to say, here.
Yeah, but when it comes to touring, so we definitely would like to go on a tour, but this whole COVID thing, it really messed up life for the underground bands. Because, for example, festivals, a lot of festivals are still holding lineups from 2020. I think I might be wrong, but Brutal Assault in Czech Republic still has the majority of lineup from 2020. Then did Hellfest in France happened last year?
Yeah, I don't remember.
I think yes. I think yes.
Yeah, might be, but some other festivals of that, like similar caliber and even smaller ones are still having lineups that were booked for 2020. So it was impossible to get into those lineups this year because they were essentially booked. As for tours, lots of venues died during the quarantine because, well, obviously there's lockdown, you don't have any gigs, you don't have any events, can't sell beer, so you go bankrupt. And the remaining venues are mostly booked already by, well, really, really well-performing bands. So the whole...
tours have been delayed by a lot of bands, like, you know, for a lot of time, essentially, here. And some of those tours are only, like, happening, like, this year. And maybe in autumn only.
And now some of the tours, mostly of American bands, are being cancelled because of war in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Which is, well, they don't want to go to Czech Republic because there is war in Ukraine, which is a little bit strange. I don't know if they learned the geography.
Yeah, it is.
But, well, maybe those bands just, you know, got used to canceling tours. Oh.
Yeah, for the last 2 years. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. I don't know. There were some strange cancellations.
Yeah, so our podcast is reaching its end, and I wanted to ask you like a question, and I sincerely hope that this question stays abstract for you forever. But what is the role of the artist during the war?
Of artist, I mean, like any artist.
Yeah, like
musician.
a cultural, like a
cultural figure.
I think the artists definitely have the power to boost the morale of the people. It doesn't only belong to music, but it might be photography, it might be performances, any kind of artists. If they have a powerful message, they can boost morale of the people, and that might be one of the roles.
I would say, generally speaking, it's not this would be an answer not only about, let's say, what's happening today, but any time in history, let's say here. History can be recorded, well, not only, let's say, in stuff like books, or I don't know, some kind of, let's say, artifacts in museums or stuff like that here. History has always also been recorded in culture itself, essentially here. So anything from music, poems, art, and things like this here. Even I don't know, even if we take any kind of things like from the medieval times here, bards of those times essentially here, just recording, well, not as an audio file, obviously here, but just creating a song and then just traveling around towns and singing about some kind of maybe big, well, hero or something of his area, let's say here. So recording culture in history is also, I think, one of those big things here, because it serves not only as for posterity, let's say here, but also, yes, to tell the tale. Would that be something to, well, boost morale, or just tell a story for the people who are living their life right now here, but also for future generations, I would say here, because there is a saying, I don't remember even an English saying here, but you can die as a person, let's say, in physical form here, but anything that you record in music will make you live as an immortal. So yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good answer, I think.
That's great answer. And like to give some context, as I said, there is a lot of there are discussions in our society about like the proper behavior, and we have a saying. It's "не на часі" in Ukrainian, but it's like not the right time in English, something like that. And we are trying to decide, like, is it the right time for music and culture, or is it not? And Kirilo is always very shy about like his band, but it was it affected him specifically because he had his release scheduled for basically the time when war has happened, and they had to make a decision like whether to release an album after it already started or to postpone it to some other time. And they decided that they should release the album, and I think it was the right choice, but it made me think about it a lot.
Yeah,
I think it was the same situation with Druch actually here. I think the guy asked to release the label to release the album sooner because he was afraid that he's gonna die until the actual release date.
Yeah, but I think, as you mentioned, it captured the spirit of this time, even though the spirit is dark and tough and all of the stuff, but still this, again, as you said, tale that needs to be told for the future generations and even for us itself. So again, Дейніус, Каміл, thank you so much that you come and speak to us. I think it was like a really great conversation, and it was very nice to meet you. And at the end of our podcast, we usually have the final part when our guests can share any thoughts or say anything they want that we didn't touch before. So basically, almost like 99% of our listeners are from Ukraine. So if you want to say something specific to our listeners, or let's say to anyone who will listen to this podcast, because it's in English, as we discussed before, anyone can understand. Yeah. You can go ahead and do it.
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for hosting us. It's really nice opportunity to share some support for the Ukrainian folks and interact with you. And as a final thought, I don't know, there isn't probably like 30 minutes every day when I don't think about what's happening in Ukraine, and I think majority of Lithuanian people are on the same page. And I just want to say that your country has full support of our people, and all of us absolute majority of our folks hope that you will prevail, that you will beat the bastards out of your country, and that you will win in the end and forever. Glory to Ukraine.
Yeah, well, stay strong, stay vigilant, and I hope that everything will end quite soon in a good way for you guys, and hopefully reclaiming all of the lost territory.
Thanks, guys. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
We really appreciate.
Thank you.
And this is it.